Welcome to Pivot Parenting, where we help parents of teens overcome regret and disappointment to find peace and connection in every situation. I'm Heather Frazier, your parenting expert. Journey with me to discover effective parenting tips, improve family relationships, and build a brighter future for your kids. Buckle up, things are about to get better. Hey guys, welcome to Pivot Parenting. It is June. Can you believe it? It is wild times. And because I know you're super interested, we are about 21 weeks down to publish date. October 28th is publication date for my second book, Mom Got Jesus Wrong, Hallelujah, and it is coming along swimmingly. I am working on guesting on other people's podcasts, lining up book clubs that I can go to, church groups, friend groups. So if you have a group, a little book club, or just a couple girlfriends that you want to get together and have dinner and talk book, I want to come. In person if I can, virtually if not. I live in the state of Utah. I can travel up to Idaho to see family or wherever you're at. It would be so fun to hang out. And we have the next 21 weeks to do so, which is fantastic. We can even do it past publication date so that everybody has a copy of the book. We can chat all things Jesus and raising our kids in our faith and what works, what doesn't. I am so excited for this book, and I want you to know it reads like a fiction. It is a young woman's journal, because sometimes self-help or church books, they're a little bit of a snooze fest in my bored opinion, but I wanted this to be a page turner, so I put beautiful art in it. I did a storyline with all the details that a story needs to keep a brain captivated. There are villains and there are plot twists, and it is so exciting. All the while we are learning. I like to liken it to a parable or a metaphor. Christ taught in parables, and a lot of people teach with story because it lines up with our brain really nicely. We like stories, and we can see ourselves in stories without feeling threatened or awkward. So I'm really excited about this book. Please go to heatherfrazier.com to pre-order it. You can pre-order on any of your favorite book ordering websites like Barnes & Noble or indie bookshops. It's all there. And if you want 5 or more books, right there on my website is where you pre-order. So if you want to pre-order for your book group, I've got you. And I have amazing bonuses that go alongside with pre-orders. You're going to get downloadable art. You're going to get quotable quotes, my soundtrack that I have customized for the book, lots of other really exciting things. Go check it out at heatherfrazier.com. And let's get started with today's topic, which is a really sensitive one. It is when our kids decide to cut us out of their lives. I'm going to cut this into 2 different halves. The first half is why this happens. The second half is what we can do about it as parents. And the reason why this is a topic that I chose is because I've seen it happening in a few different relationships around me. And it is so painful. It is painful for the child because I believe that all mentally healthy children want a mentally healthy relationship with their parents. And I also believe that around parents, those who are healthy and capable of having relationships with their kids want a relationship with their kids. And so when it doesn't happen, there's definitely something going on. And it's easy to say, well, it's the kid's fault or it's the parents' fault. And that may be true. I think that there is a spectrum on who's playing the bigger role in the departure. It's not necessarily the person who is departing. For an example, somebody might hit you every time you see them, and so you decide to not see them anymore because you don't like being hit. It's not your fault for refusing their company. It's their fault for hitting you, right? In a very simplistic term. And as I was talking to somebody specific about this, and I kept mulling over in my head their situation, one of my most favorite recent discoveries kept coming to mind. And it is a speaker named Adam Miller, and he is a fantastic speaker, author, and philosopher. And he's Christian. And he gave a fantastic presentation. I've seen it in a few different spaces. I've seen it in BYU groups, and then I've also seen it at a Faith Matters conference. And I linked the Faith Matters because it's probably the most polished presentation in the show notes. The BYU one that I found, he goes a little more in depth, but it's a little more casual, and they talk about cookies. And anyway, just to keep it professional, I included the Faith Matters link, but he essentially shares the same information. And I love this presentation. I love it so, so much. And it has made such a profound effect on me, understanding myself and my relationships with my children, my relationships with God, my relationship to myself and to my spouse, and how I see myself and how I see love. Now, I love love. I love love. I love all the good feelings. I love romantic love. I love familial love. I love friend love. I love my girlfriends. I love my kids. I love my husband. I love love. And his presentation, Adam Miller's presentation, is called Love is a Law, Not a Reward. And I would also like to add, love is not something that just happens. Love is not passive. It is a choice. And so these are all things, like, I knew that love was a choice. I knew that love didn't just happen, that you created it with the thoughts that you think about people. You can choose to love people without them earning it. And I knew all of this, but he articulates it so beautifully. And as I was chewing on my conversation with this friend of mine and her child, who decided to go no contact as an adult, I think this child has a couple of kids of their own, decided to go no contact with this parent. And I just kept coming back to love is a law, not a reward. It's not something that we earn. It is an effort that we must join. And in this presentation, he shares two stories, and one of them is a parable that Christ tells. And it's the parable of the prodigal son. And I kept thinking of this because essentially that's what the prodigal son does to his father. He says, give me what is owed mine and peace out. I don't know if you'll ever see me again. I'm kind of over what you've offered me, and I just want to go do what I want to do. And so he does. And then a great famine comes, and the son has spent all of his inheritance on riotous living, and he is starving to death, and he wants to eat the slop that he has been hired to feed to the pigs. And he remembers that his father was so good to their servants, and he thought, I bet my dad isn't starving his servants, and they don't have to eat what the pigs eat. I bet he is treating them with respect. And I will go to my dad's house, and I know that I am unfit to be his son, but I will be his servant, because being my dad's servant would be better than being this guy's servant. And so he wakes up and has awareness and remembers how good it was to be with his dad. Now, let's pause the feed for a moment, and let's discuss this first part of why this happens. Why do children choose to go no contact? There's perfectionism and performance-based love going on here. And it can be that the parent has essentially pushed the child away so many times and judged them and harmed them in such a way that the child wants to set a boundary, and they feel like that boundary is not seeing that parent. Now, again, nothing in what I am saying is black and white, all or nothing, or a blanket statement. There is a spectrum. And I want to be very clear that every parent does damage to their child. Every single parent. And if you don't think that you do not see yourself clearly. I damage my kids. Even my child who is very anxious and very tightly wound, by me being such a good mom and a good example, it stresses her out because that's too much for her to handle. Like, she wants to see more imperfection in me because then it makes her feel better. But then if you look at my other kids, they're more than happy to point out a lot of imperfections in me. Like, if we could just mix them all up, then maybe they might have a more accurate depiction of me. But that goes to say that I can't choose how my kids see me when push comes to shove. Now, I can certainly influence it. If I'm always yelling, then I can't really be upset that they think that I'm a yeller, because that would be fairly accurate, right? Fortunately, I wasn't raised by a yeller. I'm not much of a yeller. I'm definitely a crier, and maybe that makes them uncomfortable. And so some kids will like that I cry, and some kids won't like that. Ultimately, I can choose to be my best person, and they can interpret that however they want. And then it's kind of like layers. So then you have another layer of so the first layer is how we're behaving. The second layer is how they interpret. And then a third layer is any mental dysfunction. Like, if your child or you has mental dysfunction, that is also going to come into play in your relationship for good or ill. Then you have outside opinions. Like, let's say your child gets married and their spouse starts spinning tales around you because they're not mentally stable, right? There's a lot of different things that can come into play. But ultimately, the reason why is because love is being distorted and weaponized in various ways. It's kind of like trying to let me give you a story. I'm rearranging some of the wall things in my main living room. And so I had the old paint can from over 10 years ago when my living room was painted. And I had to patch up a ton of nail holes. So I got the spackle and I'm patching up the nail holes. And I went to the paint store and I said, here is my crusty, nasty, coagulated paint. Can I have the same thing? Well, of course, they don't make the same thing anymore. And they did their very best job to match it. And they even had the paint can there with the brand and the color and all the things. Well, guess what? I can still see where I patched it because it's a little oranger and it's slightly more matte. Now, do I have to look for it? Yes, but I can see it and I am aware of it. And that is kind of like relationships. Like, we're never going to find the perfect match of what any of us want in a parent or in a child or in a spouse. Like, there's no perfect match, and we can never accommodate and be identical to another relationship or another person, no matter how hard we try. But it is a lie to think that we need to be. And that is where perfectionism comes in. So a lot of things that our society deems as love is in fact not very loving. We can use the scripture, by their fruits ye shall know them, to really determine what is loving, because I can't give you an exact formula for all the thousands of listeners that are here with us today, but I can teach you the principle, which is love doesn't judge. Love is long-suffering. Charity is the pure love of God. And so all of those attributes of charity are essentially what we want to embody and what we want to offer to our child. But then our human brains get in the way. And I was talking to one mother and I talk to her consistently, and she is so hung up on how her 16-year-old daughter is messing up her life. She won't get out of bed. She can't even really clean her room. She sleeps in too late. She does all these awful things. And then I see said daughter, and she's happy, and she's hanging out with her little sister, and she's doing all of these things. And I love this mom, and I love her children. And this mom has hung the idea of love on the wrong hook, because she wants to love her family, but it is so hard when they aren't playing by the rules, by her rules of what things should look like and how children should be functional and happy. And of course, she would say, I'm just scared for my child. I want her to have a successful future. I want her to graduate high school at the bare minimum. I would like her to go to college. She has so much potential. She wants to go to medical school, and she wants to do all of these things, serve other people. But it's not going to happen with the way that she can't get her butt up and out the door and be functional. But I see a decently functional child by my perspective. Of course, the mom sees a lot more than I do. So what's true? What's loving? This idea of perfectionism, we can tie back to the parable of the prodigal son. Both sons are buying into perfectionism, which is a performance-based love. And the prodigal thinks he's lost it, that he's no longer lovable. That's why he thinks, I will just come be a servant. I no longer deserve to be his son, but I will be a servant. And when he shows up and the dad is so excited to see him and puts a ring on his finger and a robe around his shoulders and says, let's have a feast. And then the other son comes home from a hard day's work. He's like, what the crap, Dad? It's like, why are you celebrating him? I've been here the whole time and you don't throw a party for me. And he's butthurt because he thinks that love is conditional, perfectionism, and he's earned it. And the other son has not. And so when parents are cut out on one side or the other, usually a little bit of both, there is some sense of perfectionism or performance-based love. And this creates hatred. The child or parent that believes that they have not earned love hates themselves. And the child or parent who thinks that they have deserved love hates everybody else because it's a competition and they have to win. And so true, honest to goodness love is nowhere to be seen. When there's a competition, when there's a hierarchy, when there's who's better than whom or who deserves what. No, love is a law that we are all commanded. Again, if you like the Bible, if you're into that, what is the first law that Christ teaches? Love the Lord thy God. And the second is like unto it, love thy neighbor as thyself. We are commanded to love. And so if our child cuts us out, we can still love them. And I want to really emphasize that we can also be so sad and love them. And we can not put a performance-based measure onto them. And we definitely want to check where we have gotten things wrong and own our crap. Right? If we have been judgmental, if we have been punitive, if we have done all these things, we need to own that and fix that. And we can let them know, and they can choose to let us back into their life or not. This is why adult children go no contact with the parent. They misunderstand love, and there are wounds and there are layers. So we have the wounds. I have yet to be shown a mentally and emotionally healthy person that does not want a relationship with a healthy, mentally and emotionally kept family member. It doesn't exist. And so we have to really look at the various layers that's creating this. Hi there. I just want to pause and let you know if you are struggling to make sense of your teen's behaviors, emotions are running wild, and you're looking to turn things around to have the family you dreamed of while rocking them to sleep, I would love to talk to you. I want to give you a special, powerful gift. 30 minutes with me, my friend. You'll walk away with more confidence, clarity, and understanding of what the issue is and your next best step in resolving any situation you bring to me. It's completely free. I love families and want to help yours be wildly happy and successful. Book this call by visiting my website, heatherfraser.com. Remember, Fraser is spelled with a Z-I in the middle. And don't worry, the link is also in the show notes. I look forward to meeting and helping you. All right, the second portion of this, what can we do as parents? Here's what we need to do. We need to make sure that our side of the street is clean. And we do this because it is two things. It is the easiest thing for us to control, and it is the fastest thing that we can do. Because getting somebody else to change, getting somebody to think of us differently is controlling somebody else. And if we were to do that, it would take a really long time, if it ever even happened. Based off of you and I both hanging out in this space together, we have probably tried to control our kids and realized that that actually doesn't work. And that's why we're here learning something different. So when we're looking at inciting change in our life, we want to go with what is fastest and most efficient. Cutting to the chase is seeing where we're getting it wrong and repairing that, apologizing and owning our portion of anything in the past. And I genuinely only mean our portion. It does not help children who cannot see and own their own crap to own their crap for them. So we don't want to own our kids' contribution to the struggle. We can love them while they're trying to figure that out, or if they're oblivious to it. But us taking on even more is enabling bad behavior. We actually don't want to enable bad behavior, but we do want to see ourselves clearly, fix our own stuff, and then own that. And then the second portion is loving ourselves and our child unconditionally, as Christ taught, as a law. And this is really hard because this law applies to people who it is painful to love. Like maybe our ex or our crazy neighbor or our child that has ripped our heart out. But we are commanded to love them. And that doesn't mean enable bad behavior. Doesn't mean let them in our life. Again, just like we don't go around saying, hey, can you have lunch? I would love to be hit in the face. We don't say that to people that hit us in the face. But we can still love them and understand that they're doing their thing and they're worthy of love just like we are worthy of love, because we're flawed too. You and I, we're kind of a mess a lot of the time. And the beautiful thing about that is that it does not affect our lovability. And any relationship that you are currently in or that you are currently projecting onto others that says you need to earn my love, that is not love. That is perfectionism. That is performance. That is breaking the law to love. And so we got to knock that business off. So we don't play people's games and we don't start games of you got to earn my love. What this can look like in parenting is, I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm going to out myself really hard. Okay. I like hugs and snuggles and loves from the people that I love. Well, guess what? Most of my kids, I have one snuggler, and she's getting older and she is less of a snuggler. But I love their snuggles and their hugs. And when they don't give me snuggly lovings, it makes me really sad. And that's my problem. That is 100% my problem. Because I want them to be true to themselves. And I definitely do not want them to think that they owe people hugs or snuggles, because they do not. And that is setting them up for bad, abusive relationships. But I really want their snuggles. And so I can see both sides of it really clearly. And 99% of the time, I am fine if they don't want a hug or if they don't want to sit cozy next to me while we watch a movie. You know, I have a dog and a husband that can do that too, but it's different with your kid. It's a different kind of snuggle because you held them as babies and snuggled with them so much as babies. And I just love cuddling them, but they don't always love it back. And it's easy for me, if I'm not paying attention, to withdraw my love when they don't give me what I want. And I know that for you, there is something that you do the same thing, maybe a few things, because I'm sure this isn't the only thing, right? Like I would also love it if they helped me cook or other things. And when they don't do what I want them to do, then I get a little sulky and grumpy, and maybe I would say no to things. And I'm sure that you do this too. And so have a little check-in with yourself. Where do you withdraw love when you don't get what you want? That's the first place to start. We need to love our kids even if they don't give us what we want. And that includes them going no contact. We can love them and not like going no contact. Sometimes I feel like they might be going no contact because of the undue opinions of others. I think in the mental health world, it is fairly common knowledge that abusers tend to try and isolate their victims. So, for example, if your child is married or they're living with somebody or whatever, they have a committed relationship, could even potentially be a friendship, and that person wants to abuse your child, they can try to isolate them by poisoning your child against you. And you didn't do anything wrong. You're a great parent. That's why their abuser wants to remove them from your life so that you can't call out the abuser's bad behavior and help your child. That's a totally different set of circumstances where there can be intervention and other things going on to try and help your child. But ultimately, even in that situation, your child has to wake up and see why they're choosing to go no contact, and if it serves them, if it's something that they actually want, if you've made enough changes for them to want to not go no contact with you, and loving them all the while. And we are complex creatures, and so we can try to cope with feeling rejected and hurt and sad while being loving and respectful on the levels that they need. And that's really all there is to it. I wish that there was more that we can do. But when we look at the story of the prodigal son, the dad is the only one in the story that understands love, because he loves his son enough to allow him the agency to leave with his inheritance. And he loves his son that stays there enough to treat him well and give him all that he has. And then when both the boys are back under one roof, he loves them both enough to let them feel how they feel about it and not be sucked into their drama. So when the prodigal comes back and he's like, no, I'll be your servant. I'm not worthy. He doesn't buy it. He's just like, no, I love you. And this is what we're going to do. You are my son. We're going to have a party. I am so happy you're back. And when the brother comes home from working and sees that there's this party going on and it's for this prodigal that left and was such a loser, that he's totally judging, and he's starting to pitch a fit with his dad is like, I love you. And I understand that you're upset, and that's okay. All that I have is yours. You can be upset, and we're still going to move forward with celebrating that the prodigal is back. And he has such unconditional love for both of them because he understands what love is. That love is a commandment and that nobody can earn it. It does not matter what the efforts are. And this is the most surprising truth that God never asked parents to do. We think that love should be earned. We think that our kids need to perform, and to varying levels, of course. Some parents do this a lot more than others, but we think this about ourselves too. I would be so much more lovable if I didn't have gray hair, or if I lost weight, or if my house was clean, or if I cooked a healthy meal for my family. My child would be so much easier to love if they didn't give me the stink eye all the time, if they gave me hugs when I wanted them. And so we don't want to get stuck in these patterns that we all find ourselves in from time to time. It really is inevitable, and there's nothing wrong with it unless we wallow in it, because we are human, you and I. And it is easy for our tender little feelings to get hurt when our kids seem to be just stomping across our heart. And that's okay. We can hold multiple things at once. And when we really see that our lovability and worthiness of love is not attached to our quality of parenting or how much our kids like us or their success in life, it's interesting to me how a lot of self-help and emotional intelligence is just me, all about me, right? Like how I see myself, how I love myself. But I have found with myself and with all the parents that I help that it's almost like tandem. We are so intrinsically attached to our child that they are kind of part of us. So their success is our success, and their failure is our failure. And when we buy into the cultural norm that affects how lovable we are, I mean, the beauty industry does a great job of exemplifying this, right? Like, you need to be more thin, you need to be more young, you need to not have wrinkles, you need to have the cutest clothes and the best photos. And like, the beauty industry is one of the highest grossing industries out there, capitalizing on you need to be lovable. And of course, that's more in a sexual way, but you get what I'm saying. It's a lie. You and I, it doesn't matter what we look like or what we've succeeded in life or our failures. We are 100% worthy of love. And it's not about earning love. It is about giving it. It is about gaining the strength and intelligence to love unconditionally, regardless of what is happening. And again, a lot of people tie love into being a doormat. No. Look at Christ. He was no doormat. He put people in their place real fast, but it was from a loving place, not a judgmental place. And so don't be a doormat, because that is also perfectionism. That is, I have to yield in order for people to like me. No doormats. We want to stand for what is good and what is right in the most loving, divine way. And that is how we can invite our child back into not going no contact with us, because that is the only thing we have control over. Our adult kids, they get to do whatever they want. So we need to be mindful of any abusive situations and help how and where we can help with that. And then we have to give them the space to heal, to see things clearly, and for us to evolve and become the very best version of us that we can become, so that if they ever choose to not go no contact, they will be pleasantly surprised. That is our work. That is my message. I am so grateful to have you here with me this week, and I wish you the best.